So what we're going to do this week is we're going to take a look at the defenders available. And I've picked a top 10 for you of defenders available that I think you should be considering if you want to play five at the back. Some are obvious, some less so. Let's start with the obvious one. My number one defender that you shouldn't really do without is Trent Alexander-Arnold of Liverpool. Gets clean sheets, scores goals, but gets so many assists. He is the perfect player, and he's the player that I would build my team around. Also, João Cancelo. Now, in the past year or two, we've seen Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola tinker quite a lot, a bit like Claudio Ranieri did during his career. That means that you're never really guaranteed who's going to start every single week. Is there a set player that can always be relied upon? Not really. I think we found one this season, though, in João Cancelo. Even Kyle Walker on the other side. But Cancelo seems to be the man in demand right now. So I've got number one, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Number two, João Cancelo. And to wrap up the top three, Reece James. Now, at the start of the season, he was in, he was out, as Piliqueta was playing there. But what we know now, given that Reece James's recent form is outstanding, he's likely to stay in there. Now, those are the three. I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. But if you've got those three, that is a really good base for your team. Now, what I would suggest, I want to take a look at this full screen here. This is over the last 4 weeks, shots conceded. Chelsea have only conceded 18 shots on their goal. Very impressive. Manchester City next best with 22, and then Liverpool with 28. That's the top three for the fewest shots conceded over the last 4 weeks. Now, it's easy to say, oh, you should get Trent Alexander-Arnold, you should get João Cancelo, you should get Reece James. Yeah, most people are going to have those three. So how do you gain on your opponents? How about doubling up? Now, Manchester City's, I'm not saying it's a tough double up because Kyle Walker's steady, but I think there's better value elsewhere. I would double up on Chelsea and I would double up on Liverpool. The obvious double up for Chelsea right now is Marcus Alonso because Ben Chilwell is probably going to be out for a couple of months, and Alonso should make that spot his own. So I like Alonso on one side and Reece James on the other. That's Chelsea taken care of. There's others as well, but he does like to rotate a few of his centre-halves. Rudiger is probably the one that plays most often. For Liverpool, I think you've got options here. I like Virgil van Dijk, and he's at number 4 in my top 10 defenders right now. He scored at the weekend, but he's always a threat from the set plays, whether it's a Trent Alexander-Arnold delivery or corners. Love Virgil van Dijk. Your other option to double up with Liverpool is Andrew Robertson. Maybe he went through a little bit of a dip, had 1 or 2 injury problems. Tsimikas has played as well. But when he's fit, Robertson starts. So I wouldn't put you off either Virgil van Dijk or Andrew Robertson to double up your Liverpool defence alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold. As far as Man City are concerned, maybe think about the goalkeeper. If you want to do that, if you want your double up from City, maybe Ederson, because you know if he's fit, he is guaranteed to start. Okay, so we've got Alonso at 5. That's the 1 to 5 taken care of. Now 6 through 10. And you can have these in any order. I've just put them like this because maybe it's a preference. Aaron Cresswell hurt his back, but should be okay for midweek. Takes corners for West Ham. They've got the likes of Craig Dawson and various others who are not deadly from set plays, but they're one of the best teams in the league from scoring from set pieces. And when Aaron Cresswell is delivering, plus the clean sheet potential as well, I love him as a mid-priced defender. Sergio Reguilón at Spurs. I think Antonio Conte going forward will play with 3 at the back, which means Reguilón will be one of his wing backs. And we saw recently when he scored that he can get points at both ends of the pitch. So he's one to consider as well. It's going to take a little bit of time before Antonio Conte puts his stamp on that Spurs team, but he's going to make them hard to beat. And if you can get someone who's creative in a defence that won't concede many, maybe ahead of the game if you get Sergio Reguilón. Takehiro Tomiyasu. I had him at the weekend, brought him in. I was fortunate enough to get the 12 points on offer. He got an assist and he got full bonus points. And he's low-owned. The opportunity for someone like Tomiyasu, who's pretty much nailed on at right back, 3 clean sheets in his last 4. That's something you can look at. Maybe a little bit more owned, I would say, Ben White, but I don't think he's as much of a threat. Matt Targett, who's been among the goals at Villa of late at the weekend, he's someone who's cheaper than Matty Cash, and I think that the fullbacks, as we saw with Steven Gerrard when he was Rangers manager, they are a key component in his sides. He loves them to get forward. And Matty Targett, I think, is someone who can, I think he's under 5 million, and he can certainly benefit your fantasy team. And someone as well who from last season, he was like the darling of the FPL for a while, and then it kind of disappeared a little bit. Tariq Lamptey of Brighton. I love this kid. He bombs forward, and he kept a clean sheet at the weekend as well in the 0-0 with Leeds. So Tariq Lamptey is someone I think, not necessarily saying you can rely upon him because he does have 1 or 2 injuries in his past. So it is a bit of a gamble, but I think for a cheap Brighton defender, Tariq Lamptey, you can't go wrong with that. The other thing I want to have a look at is teams. We've already seen who don't concede many shots, teams that do. And maybe you should avoid these teams and defenders from these teams in the short term, especially the one at the top of this list. Manchester United, 69 shots conceded in the last 4 weeks. That's got to get better going forward. Ralph Rangnick, now being confirmed, he'll want to make them a lot harder to beat. So I think Man United defenders going forward in the future might be someone that you can have a look at and maybe bring in. But for now, I would avoid them, as well as Newcastle defenders. Brentford defenders, yes, they've conceded a few. Rico Henry, though, gets points at the other end. But I would stick with those that don't concede too many. And by the way, of that list, that top 10, 9 of them are fullbacks. And if you replace Andrew Robertson and stick him in instead of Virgil van Dijk, all 10 of them are fullbacks. I think that's the way to go. It's up to you. But if you go 5 at the back, you're going to have some big hitters in there, as well as 1 or 2 under-the-radar stars.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week, subscribe to ESPN+.